Please, listen to me. I can't lose you. Forgive me.
It is too late.
All rise. The bailiff's voice came and went like wind through an empty hall. Judge Marin did not look up immediately. She was studying a photograph attached to the inside of a court file. A girl, maybe 6, holding a paper star she had cut herself, smiling at someone behind the camera. One of her shoes was untied. Judge Marin had seen 10,000 photographs in 26 years on the bench. She had never lingered this long on one. Elena Whitfield sat in the front row of the gallery, hands folded around a sealed envelope she had carried for 4 years. Across the aisle, her ex-husband Daniel Whitfield sat with his attorney, Mr. Kessler, both of them looking like men who believed the day was already won. All rise. The Honorable Judge Marin presiding. Case number 24-7894, in re Whitfield. Daniel stood. He was tall, lean, dressed in charcoal. He had aged the way men do when they stop sleeping well. There were creases at the corners of his mouth that had not been there when Elena had stood next to him at the altar of St. Andrew's, in the second pew on the left, the church that still kept a glass jar at its entrance for the children's paper birds. He had not seen her in 19 months. He had not seen the girl in the photograph in 5 years. Not since a snowy afternoon in February, when Elena had packed a duffel bag and walked out of their townhouse in Caldwell, leaving behind his suits, his books, the terrarium she had built for him on his 40th birthday, and a man who no longer recognized the woman he had married. Your Honor, Mr. Kessler began, before the judge even finished the photograph. We are here today on an emergency motion to terminate the mother's visitation rights and grant sole custody to the father. The grounds, Mr. Kessler. Judge Marin looked up. Counsel may be seated. The court will read the file. There were 2 hard things about being a family court judge in upstate New York in the 11th month of any year. One was that almost everyone who came through the door was telling the truth about something. The other was that almost everyone was lying about something else. Judge Marin had been told 3 weeks earlier that Elena Whitfield had been deemed emotionally unstable by the Family Services Assessment dated April. She had been told that Elena had refused supervised visits. She had been told that Daniel Whitfield had been an exemplary parent during the separation. She had not been told that the assessment had been commissioned and paid for by Daniel Whitfield himself. She had not been told that Elena had refused supervised visits because the supervisor had been a former colleague of Mr. Kessler. She had not been told that Daniel Whitfield had not spent a single night alone with his daughter Maya in 19 months of asking for primary custody. Elena watched Daniel pull his chair out and sit. He did not look at her. She had stopped expecting him to look at her 2 winters ago, when she had received her second summons and realized that the man who had once held her hand during a difficult miscarriage was now preparing to take their daughter from her in a public room. Mrs. Whitfield. Judge Marin's voice was calm, almost kind. I'm going to ask you a few questions before we proceed. Where does your daughter currently attend school? Elena swallowed. Maple Hollow Elementary, 1st grade. And who drops her off in the morning? I do, Your Honor. And who picks her up? I do. Daniel's attorney shifted a paper on his desk. Elena understood the shift. He was preparing to object. Every morning, every afternoon, every lunchbox packed with a small slip of paper on which Maya had written something like, "Have a good day, Mom," or "Tomorrow is pizza." Those were the facts that did not fit Mr. Kessler's narrative. And the child's drawings, Judge Marin continued, glancing again at the photograph. She draws frequently? Every night, Your Honor. Elena's voice almost broke on the word night. She draws a house, always the same house. It's a small yellow house with a red door and 2 cats in the window. Sometimes she puts a tall man in the yard." "And who is the tall man?" Elena did not answer immediately. The courtroom was so quiet that Daniel heard her breath catch. He turned his head for the first time and looked at her. "Daniel," Elena said, "the tall man in the drawing is you." The judge set the file down. 40 minutes before the hearing, Elena was sitting in her parked car on Howard Street, 2 blocks from the courthouse, with the heat on and the radio off. Maya was at school. Elena had gotten up at 4:30, made a small lunch, written a note on the napkin, "I love you to the moon and back, Mom," and walked her daughter to the bus stop under a sky so low it pressed on the trees. For a moment, Elena had watched the bus pull away and thought, "This may be the last time I stand here." She had not let herself think it any louder than that. In her lap sat the envelope. It was cream-colored, the kind of envelope lawyers use when they want to frighten you. Across the front, in Daniel's handwriting, was his own name, Daniel R. Whitfield. The envelope had been sealed for 4 years, since the morning after Elena had left him, when she had found it in the back of his study desk, behind a tax return he had never filed. She had not opened it then. She had not opened it because she did not want the truth yet. The truth had been the only thing she had been able to give Maya that Daniel could not take. And she had wanted her daughter to grow up believing 2 good things about her father. The 2 good things were that Daniel had not known Maya existed, and that Daniel had not known that Elena was the one who had paid for his sister's wedding. The 2 good things had been the entire foundation of Maya's life. Now, on this gray November morning, Elena ran her thumb under the wax seal without breaking it. The seal was already cracked. He had opened the envelope himself. He had read it. He had sealed it again. He had known what was in it. He had known for 4 years. Daniel had known because his father had told him. Old Mr. Whitfield, Arthur, was a quiet man who kept a garden in his backyard and a black and white photograph of his late wife on his dresser. He had been the kind of father who attended every school play and never once raised his voice. 11 months before Elena left, Arthur had taken Daniel aside after a Sunday dinner and said, "There's something I should have told your mother years ago. I'm going to tell you instead." He had given Daniel the envelope. Inside had been a single sheet of paper, dated 26 years earlier, on which a young Arthur had written, "Son, I want you to know, before you get married and start a family of your own, that when I was 23, I made an error that lasted exactly 1 night. I never told your mother. I have lived with that error for a 1/4 century. I have made peace with God about it. I will make peace with your mother before I go. I am telling you because I do not want you to repeat my cowardice. When you have a child, son, do not lie to the child. Do not hide the child. Do not make the child pay for an old man's mistake." At the bottom, Arthur had signed his name and added, "Your mother knows exactly one thing. Your future wife must not know anything until you are ready to be the man she married." Arthur had died 8 months after that dinner. He had not told his wife. Daniel had put the letter back in the envelope and sealed it because he had not known what else to do with it. He had not been able to look at Elena the same way after that evening. Every kindness she offered him, a glass of water on the nightstand, a hand on his shoulder when his work was bad, had begun to feel like recompense he did not deserve. He had begun, without meaning to count small failures in her. He had begun to suspect her of a thing he could not name. When she had gotten pregnant with Maya, he had refused to attend the ultrasound. He had refused to be in the room when Maya was born. He had refused to sign the birth certificate. He had not said to Elena, in any of those moments, the sentence that would have explained everything. He had not said, "I am afraid that if I look at our daughter, I will see my father's face." He had not said, "I am afraid I am exactly the man my father was." In the courtroom, Mr. Kessler rose to call his first witness. It was the Family Services Assessor, Dr. Phoebe Lennox, a woman with a low bun and a soft voice, who testified that Elena had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and postpartum depression. She testified that Elena had refused supervised visits. She testified that Elena had, in her professional opinion, an unstable attachment style and was a flight risk. Judge Marin listened. She asked no questions yet. Daniel watched Elena from across the aisle. He watched her thumb the broken wax seal. He watched her not break it further. He had not known, until this morning, that Elena would bring the envelope. He had not known that his father's letter was still in it. He had thought she had thrown it away. He had thought wrong, and now he was sitting in a courtroom in which, for the first time in his adult life, he had no idea what was about to happen. Maya Grace Whitfield was 6 years old and 104 days old, and she liked 3 things in the world with a constancy that surprised her teachers. She liked the small plastic dinosaur that lived in her left coat pocket. She liked the silver locket her mother wore that opened with a tiny click and contained a photograph of a woman Maya had never met. And she liked drawing houses. The houses in Maya's drawings were always the same house. A small yellow house with a red door and 2 cats in the window. The house had a chimney, and from the chimney, a curl of black smoke rose into a sky that Maya had insisted was gray, because gray is the color of warm. There was always a tall man in the yard. The tall man wore a blue shirt every single time. Maya had been asked by her kindergarten teacher why the shirt was always blue. Maya had said, "Because that is the color of his eyes when he is calm." Maya did not know the tall man's name. She did not know his voice. She had been told by her mother that her father was a kind man who had gone away before Maya was old enough to remember his face. Maya had said once, after a Christmas Eve service at St. Andrew's, "Mom, why does God put stars on the tree if stars are already in the sky?" Elena had said, "I think he likes when we remember them twice." Maya had nodded. Twin stars. Elena had held her daughter's hand the entire walk home. A neighbor, Mrs. Adair from the brown double house on Spruce, had called out from her front steps, "Maya, you look just like your father, sweetie." Elena had kept walking. Maya had asked later that night, "Mom, do I look like him?" "You have his eyes," Elena had said. "You have his hands. You walk like he walked." Maya had thought about this for a long time. "Do I walk slow?" "You walk careful," Elena had said. "He walked careful too." This was the sentence that Maya carried now, at school, in the back of her mind, when she was writing in her notebook. "I walk careful. He walked careful too." Elena did not know that Maya remembered this sentence. She did not know that Maya whispered it to herself when the hallway was loud. The courtroom took a recess at 11. Daniel stood in the corridor outside court by the water fountain. He had not eaten breakfast. He had come from the office,
where he had stayed late last night and slept for 2 hours on the leather chair behind his desk. He had not packed a lunch. He was wearing the blue shirt. He had not known why he had put on the blue shirt until he had seen Elena's face when she had come through the door. Elena passed him at the fountain. She stopped 4 feet away. They had not been this close in 19 months. "Elena," Daniel said. "Daniel." "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't come here to take her from you. I came because I thought if I named it clearly, you named me unstable in a sealed filing, Daniel." "I did." "You paid for the diagnosis." "I did." "You knew Maya existed." "I did." Elena looked at him then, the way you look at a door you walked out of and find still standing. "And you never came?" "I couldn't," Daniel said. "I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at you. My father told me something about himself 5 years ago that I have not been able to put down on the table. I came here today because I thought if I had the legal right to see her, I could make myself stand in the room." Elena said nothing. After a long minute, she said, "Your father was a good man." Daniel said, "He was." "He told you not to make your child pay for an old man's mistake." "Yes." "You made her pay for it anyway." "Yes." Elena looked down at the envelope. "I have carried this for 4 years. I was not going to open it. I was going to wait until Maya was old enough to decide for herself whether to read it. Today, in that courtroom, I am going to give it to the judge."
Not because I want to win. Because Maya is 6 years old and 104 days old, and she draws your blue shirt in every picture, and she walks careful like you walked, and she has never once known your voice. Daniel closed his eyes. Back in the courtroom, Judge Marin took her seat. Elena stood. "Your Honor, may I approach the bench?" "You may." Elena handed the envelope to the clerk. The clerk opened it, read the single sheet, and passed it silently to the judge. Judge Marin read the letter twice. She looked up at Daniel. Daniel was staring at the carpet. Then she looked at Elena. "Mrs. Whitfield, you have carried this document for 4 years." "Yes, Your Honor." "Through how many hearings?" 3 prior. This is the 4th. "And you have not used it before?" "No, Your Honor." "Why not?" Elena said quietly, "Because Maya had 2 good things to believe about her father. I wanted to keep those 2 good things for as long as I could." Judge Marin nodded once. She set the letter down. She looked at Daniel Whitfield. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, "please stand." Daniel stood. "Did you commission the Family Services Assessment?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Did you select the assessor?" "Yes." "Did you know your daughter existed at the time of the assessment?" Daniel said, "Yes, Your Honor. I knew. I have known for 5 years." "Have you seen her?" "No, Your Honor. I have not been in the same room with my daughter since she was 11 months old." "Have you spoken to her?" "Once. On her 4th birthday. I called from a payphone in Albany, and a woman answered who I did not know, and who told me, very kindly, that my daughter was at a birthday party and could not come to the phone." The courtroom was very quiet. Judge Marin said, "Mr. Whitfield, this court understands that a man can be the son of a man who made a serious error. This court does not, however, accept that an adult may use his father's error as a license to abandon a child. I am going to deny your motion in full. I am going to restore full custody to Mrs. Whitfield. I am going to require supervised visitation on a 6-month ramp. I am going to order full psychological evaluation for both parents. And I am going to do none of that until the mother tells me what she is asking for. She turned to Elena. Mrs. Whitfield, what are you asking this court to do? Elena stood very still. The envelope was on the bench. The photograph of Maya in the file was still there. The silver locket was around Elena's neck. What Elena asked the court to do surprised everyone, including her lawyer. She asked the court to do nothing. She asked the court to allow Maya to remain in her care, exactly as she was, with no change in custody, no visitation schedule, no psychological evaluation, until Maya chose one. She asked for a single order, that when Maya turned 12, if she chose to read her grandfather's letter, both her parents would be legally bound to allow her to do so without interference. She asked, in other words, for Maya to be allowed to be 6. Judge Marin sat back. You understand that you are waiving your legal claim to damages? Yes, Your Honor. You understand that the father could still petition this court at any time? Yes, Your Honor. You understand that he may, in a year, change his mind again? Yes, Your Honor. The judge leaned forward. Why? Elena said, Because, Your Honor, my daughter is 6 years old and 104 days old, and she has never known what a courtroom smells like. I want her to remember, when she is old enough to read this letter, that her mother did not take her father apart in public to win a fight. I want her to remember that her mother chose her, so that she may one day be able to choose, fairly, between both of you. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked at Daniel. Mr. Whitfield, do you consent? Daniel said very quietly, Yes, Your Honor. I consent. Judge Marin nodded. Mrs. Whitfield, given the circumstances, this court will allow that order. Custody remains as it has been. The court will hold this letter in sealed records to be released to the child at her request upon turning 12, or sooner if both parents stipulate. Court is in recess. It was 4:15 when school let out. Elena parked on Howard. The trees along Maple Hollow Elementary's iron fence had lost almost every leaf. There were puddles from a soft rain earlier. Elena watched the buses pull out, watched the parents greet their children along the curb. Maya came around the corner in her red coat, the one with the broken zipper that Elena kept meaning to replace. In her right hand, she was carrying a paper bag. In her left hand, she was holding her plastic dinosaur by the tail, the way she always did when she was thinking about something important. She saw Elena. She did not run. She walked careful, the way her mother had told her her father had walked. She came up to the passenger side and stood on the curb and said, "Mom, I made something." "What did you make, baby?" "A house." Maya handed up the paper bag. Inside, folded carefully between 2 sheets of notebook paper, was the small yellow house, the red door, the 2 cats in the window, and now, for the first time, a small figure of a woman in the doorway, with long hair and a yellow locket. Maya said, "That's you." Elena said, "That's me." "And the tall man in the blue shirt is him. You told me his shirt is blue when he is calm." "Yes." Maya climbed into the car and buckled herself. She looked at her mother for a long moment. Mom, is he nice? Elena paused with her hand on the key. The envelope was in her bag. The letter was in the court's record. The drawing was on the seat between them. The small dinosaur was in Maya's pocket. He is very nice, Elena said. He is just a little sad right now. Maya nodded. Sad is okay. Sad is like gray. Gray is the color of warm. Elena kissed the top of her daughter's head. She started the car. The rain had stopped. The clouds over Maple Hollow were beginning to break up, and through them, low over the rooftops and the iron fence and the small playground where Maya had learned to ride a bike in the spring, there was a single thread of clear sky, pale and wide and very still. Maya said, Mom, can we put a star on our tree this year? Yes, baby. 2 stars? Yes, 2. Twin stars, Maya said. Elena drove home. She did not cry. She did not laugh. She drove the long way around Howard, past the church on Spruce where Mrs. Adair still kept the glass jar for the children's paper birds, past the school where Maya had said, I walk careful. He walked careful too. Past the courthouse where a sealed letter now sat in a file, waiting, patiently, gently, for the day that a girl who was 6 years old and 104 days old would decide, on her own, what to do with her grandfather's name. And in the back seat, Maya held her drawing against her chest and closed her eyes, and the small plastic dinosaur stood up in her coat pocket, and the silver locket clicked softly against Elena's collarbone, and somewhere in a courthouse file, 4 blocks away, a wax seal, half broken, half held the rest of the story for a few more years, until a girl of 12 was ready. Elena turned left on Spruce. She turned right at the lights. She drove slow. She drove careful. She drove the way the tall man in the blue shirt had once walked. And the day, very gently, began to come back.